The officials are ready. The fighters are in the ring, and they are ready. So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to the DJ Scottos What, Why Now podcast, where I'm inviting special guests onto my show to ask them questions about their life and success stories. For this week's episode, I have another special guest to find out what it was like growing up in West London, dealing with parents splitting up when he was only 10, running with the Chelsea Headhunters, how he's evolved to be one of the best DJs in drum and bass, and what it's like being involved with the SASASAS and the impact of losing Stormin and Skibadee, and to talk about his new book, 3 Generations Deep, and his plans for the future. I'm really excited to introduce our very special guest today. Let's make some virtual noise for DJ Phantasy. Firstly, thank you so much for joining my new podcast. How are you?
Yeah, all good, man, all good. So,
what was it like growing up in West London? By the way, obviously you were around sort of the South Ealing way. What was it like growing up there?
West London, what I love about it is it's like it was multicultural. There was like a lot of obviously I'm English, but my family are Irish, so I'm English Irish community. And then my best mates at school was Paul Shagamutu, who's an Indian guy, and then Paul Alawadi. I think his family came from Jamaica, and then Thomas Bogdanovich, who was from Poland. And then my mate Joel Woodley, he was English, and then Luciano Botti, he was Italian. So to me, like West London was like a melting pot of people from all over the world, and I either liked someone or I didn't like them. West London, it wasn't like that. It was wicked. It's actually, let's put it this way, I enjoyed it so much growing up in West London that when I had my first kid, I was actually living outside of West London. I was living in another part of London, and I thought, right, I want my kid to go back to school in West London. Yeah. So I just kind of worked on a plan to sort of get back over here. You know what I mean? So it's a nice place to live, man.
What was your what was your favourite memory then of childhood?
You went out and played football with all your mates, and then you got on your BMX and you went BMXing, and it was just quite. Yeah, it was quite chilled. Certain parts of London where you have like sort of like postcode wars and gangs. Yeah. The way I look at it is football hooliganism was that era's postcode war. So instead of fighting for your area, you fought for your team. Right. Does that make sense? So to me, like that was a way of like kind of release for that generation. Do you know what I mean?
But obviously things did change for you, right? When you were 10, and then you moved with your mum's new boyfriend, with his family. How was that?
Well, my stepdad, God rest his soul, Pat, he was a gent. You know what I mean? I've got nothing but good things to say about him. You know, I could have had like a really horrible stepdad. He was actually really cool. I never had to call him dad or anything. I got a dad, so I just called him Pat by his name, and he never had no issues with that. And I got on well with his kids as well. Like they were, like one was same age as me, and the others are older than me.
Your mum and dad were very different. What you mentioned in your book, obviously your mum was very, very supportive on trying to put all your music career. Your dad was a hardworking person, and you mentioned that cocktail, I guess, of you. I guess what impact did they have on your career?
My mum definitely. I got my passion from my mum, and I got my business acumen from my dad. They both give me different elements of the way that my makeup is and how I deal with things in my head. If there was anything that I felt hard done by or whatever, go and deal with it immediately, and probably at the risk of upsetting the person on the receiving end. But I got to the bottom of it. Whatever it was, I got to the bottom of it. And that was, my mum was very much like that. If there was an issue, she'd just be like, just go head on to it. What I notice in my kids, like I wish I was a bit more like you guys, because for example, one of my daughters, she needed to take a morning off work for something, and her boss was being a bit of a dick. And my instant reaction was, you need to phone your boss and tell them blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, Dad, I can't do that. And I was like, you can do that. Like this woman don't own you, you know what I mean? And I was going to, and so, but she, anyway, after sort of like about 20 minutes, I went, do you know what? You're right. The old me would have done that, been on the phone going, we talking about, I can't take the morning off. I could do what I want, you know, and that kind of attitude. Whereas you've got to be so careful what you say about anything. It's quite sad.
Talking about your children, by the way, you've got 3 girls from what I've read. What are the proudest moments been so far with them all?
Or everything, mate. They're like brilliant kids. I always remember when we used to go to any parties, like people coming up going, why are your kids like, your kids are so well behaved? They'd be just sort of sitting there chilling, and they wouldn't be running around going mental. And we brought them up. We didn't just let them grow up. Do you know what I mean? We've actually, like, you know, and it's real hard work. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that. And what it is it can breed a little bit of like, oh God. Yeah, man, I'm so proud of them. They're brilliant. One's working for work. She went straight out of school into work. She's doing really well. My middle one's in uni. She's training to treat cancer patients.
Oh wow, brilliant.
And my other one's just in the last year of school. So brilliant. They're quite proactive and want to go and do stuff, you know.
Any of them asked to be taught how to mix? No,
to be honest with you, my youngest doesn't like loud music. She I brought her out to a rave years ago. Chip was headlining, and then we were supporting him. And I knew that at the time they liked Chip because, like, you know, he was like, oh, you know, he was a pop star, wasn't he, or whatever. And so I brought them, and the baby, the youngest, was just like this. My middle daughter, the one that's at uni, like I said to her, you know, like, do you want to come to a club? And she's like, no. And I was like, why? And she goes, it's so weird. Like when I was her age, I would be going clubbing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Mate, if there was an afters, I would be there. Do you know what I mean? And then I would, like, you know, and I couldn't get enough of it. But these kids, they've been so spoilt with the festivals. And she turned around and said to me, Dad, I prefer to go to festivals because A, it's in the day. B, I can go and watch an act I want to see, and then after 20 minutes, half hour, go and sit on the grass somewhere with my friends and chat, and then go to another arena. And it's just a completely different way of doing things now. It's absolutely crazy.
My oldest is 18, and we did a little bit of a father and son DJ and drum and bass kind of thing for a bit.
Yeah.
But like you and me, our passion is within drum and bass. There's a difference about playing drum and bass, but it's also loving it. He used to play it, pretty good at mixing, but obviously it's a lot easier now. But he wasn't passionate about it. You're married to a lady called Sharon, the love you put on your book, the love of your life.
Yeah.
When and how did you meet?
It's quite funny. My mate John was driving me to this rave, Clacton Pier, right? He was meeting some girl there, and it just so happened the girl he was meeting, Sharon was with her. So I basically, just long story short, I just was like, who's that? And he's like, oh, Sharon. Like, and he goes, well, do you want me to introduce you? I was like, yeah, definitely. So he introduced me. I basically said to her, look, can I take your number? We met at that club. And then I found out after a little while, when I started dating her, that her mum and dad had met at the same club 30 years before. And the funny thing is, she wasn't even meant to be there that night. She only went because her mate dragged her there. And she was like, I really didn't want to go. And like, so, yeah, so that's why I think sometimes like things are meant to happen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sliding Doors. Have you watched that film called Sliding Doors where that she makes the tube or she doesn't make it, and then she goes home and finds out something's changed, and it just shows you that moment. And
I've seen that. Is that a new one?
No, it's quite an old one where just you have 2 parts of the film going on, where you see she made the tube or she didn't. You met your wife, or you wouldn't have met your wife. What would have been? Yeah. Okay, so is she into your music? Is she into the music that you do?
When I first met her, one of my songs, me and Seduction made. I remember we were in the car and it come on the radio, and I went, "Oh, this is my track." And she went, "No, don't worry." I went, "Yeah." She went, "It's shit." And I went, "What do you mean it's shit?" And she went, "Oh, it's so annoying. Everyone used to play it. It was so annoying." And I was like, "You winding me up?" But I knew she wasn't, because she said it before she beat me to it when it went diddle. She went, "Yeah, I hate this song." And I was like, I was about to say, this is my track. And no, she wasn't really into it. But the good thing about it is when I met her, she didn't know who I was. I loved that.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like, oh, it's Phantasy. You know what I mean? She was like, who? I class her, as well as my wife, she's like my partner. Wicked. You know, I run everything by her. she'll tell me about things, like, because she looks at it from the outside, and she'll tell me about things 6 months before they happen.
Wow.
And I'm like, so what it is, I remember this one incident, she'd be like, you need to watch that because this is what's going to happen. And I was like, no, don't be silly, no. And then when it happened, she went, told you. And I went, and then she did it again. And then, like, so now she tells me something, I'm like, I listen with a different ear. I'm like, okay, cool. And what it is, even though I might not act upon it straight away, it's in there and it's registered. You know what I mean?
What did she do out of interest? Just what did she do for
work?
Yeah,
no, she just basically works in a school. I remember back in the day when I used to, I talk about it in my book, when I, Hype would be like, didn't like one of my tunes and he wouldn't play it, and I got the right ump about it. And what I've learned over time is music is subjective. Not everything that I make you're going to like, but there might be something that I like, that you like, that I make. So example, I done a track last year, and I had such great feedback from the DJs, like, oh my god, this is sick. And I was like, fucking hell, this is wicked. And then I did another track that got no reply whatsoever, but the track that got no reply actually done better than the track everyone was going mad about. So
as I mentioned earlier, with regards to the entrepreneur, you started to get involved in some sort of flyering, doing tickets, as you mentioned in your book. Like, how did that all come about?
I'm a type of person that if I do something, I go in and I do it properly. There's no point in doing something if you're not going to give it 100%. So I basically, the first thing I wanted to do is I just wanted to get a queue jump. I didn't want to stand in the 2-hour queues outside a club. So as I was going everywhere, it was, I always remember this guy, Stuart, who run the Slough Centre. I said to him, coming out of there one night, I went, I'm going to Land of Oz, which was on Monday night at Heaven. I said, I'm going to Land of Oz on Monday. Do you want me to take some flyers for you? And he went, oh, all right, then cool. So I'm standing outside doing the flyers, and in front of me is Jarvis, who run biology. Jarvis went to me while we were handing out flyers, have you got any VIPs for that? And I went, in my head, I went, well, what the fuck is a VIP? I didn't actually know what a VIP was. And I was like, and I went, have you got any VIPs for that? And he went, yeah. Come and see me tomorrow at the Vinyl Zone in Kings Road. Now that was beautiful because that's where I was buying my music. So I was like, sweet. So I went in there the next day, and I said to him, he goes, bring a photo. So I brought a photo. He went round the back, and next thing he's brought me this biology membership, VIP pass with my photo on it. And I'm like, oh, it was like, oh, you know what I mean? This I've just got this is a golden ticket now. And then I said to him, look, do you want to give me some flyers? I'm going to wherever on, I think it might have been wherever on Wednesday, and then I was going to Rage on Thursday. So he gave me, he said, he gave me a bag of flyers. And so I'm standing there now with 2 flyers. I've got Slough Centre and biology. So the reason I did it was just to get a queue jump. Even when I first did it, I still got a queue jump, but I still paid my £25 to get in. It wasn't about getting in for free. I still paid my money. And then as time gone on, like next thing you know, oh, you can get in for free. Okay, cool. And then I started selling tickets for raves. There is one story that didn't make the book. I remember I was selling tickets for some big rave. I can't remember what it was now. It might have been like an Energy or or a Fantasia. I was getting them sold out of my mum's house. So when I went there, my mum was selling the tickets for me. Yeah, this guy went, I can't get to yours. Can you meet me at Ealing Broadway? I went, yeah, cool. I got to Ealing Broadway. I'm sitting in my car outside the station with my mate. Next thing, all these guys just like, one come up to my door, 2 jumped in the back of the car. And they went, I literally had 2 tickets on me because they wanted 2 tickets. And they went, yo, you better give us the tickets for free. And I was like, I can't do that. And they went, yeah, you robbed us. You gave us fake tickets for the last event, which I was like, no, there's no fake tickets. Yeah. And he went, I just went, fuck it. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to get into it. Like there was more of them than us. So I went like that and I handed him tickets, and he went, you're lucky you are who you are. Otherwise, or whatever, otherwise we'd have done you. You know how they used to talk back in the night, or do you or whatever. And I was just like, wow. And anyway, when they shot off, and I turned around to my mate Rob, and I was like, what the hell just happened there? And he's like, that's it. They just literally took the 2 tickets.
Yeah. How old was you then, Steve?
Would have been about 18, 19. Right. Anyway, so I've obviously phoned a promoter, and I'm like, look, basically I've been robbed of 2 tickets. I I've got the ticket stub numbers, and they just went, look, don't worry about it, because I'd sold shitloads anyway. They were like, don't worry about it. And I went, don't you want to track it down? And they went, give us the ticket numbers, but it's going to be like a needle in a haystack.
I think there's one example you gave where you'd sold so many tickets, you literally had like ridiculous amount of cash on you, which then becomes a little bit like that story there, where you think you're quite vulnerable, right? But back then was obviously your secret locations, phones weren't really massive back then. No,
you had to go to the phone box and phone some mad 0800 or 0345 or whatever it was, some mad number, and there would be a message there telling you where to go. Just to summarize it, it's that event called Phantasy on September the 30th, 1989, where I actually got my name from, and it was that rave that I sold like it at a location like a Box Hill car park. It was. I sold so many tickets that I had about 10 grand on me easily, and it was just all stuffed in my pockets. It's like quite mad, like, and when I think about it now, what the bloody hell was I doing? So anyway, when the security this was on the news, when the security are all turning the police van over, I'm telling everybody, because they blocked the party off, I'm telling everyone, run through the fields. So I'm running through the fields of all the people I sold tickets to.
Right.
And it dawned on me as I'm running across the field that, hold on a minute, all these are now not paying to get in because they've bought their ticket. So they could have easily gone, bro, give me my money back. You know what I mean? I would have been, I'd have had to give them their money back. What could I do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But thankfully, no one said nothing. Anyway, I went into to the guys who were running the event, and I was like, guys, I've got all this money, I need to give it to you. And they went, see us Monday, because obviously it was all on top for them. And I went, and I just went and just stacked all this money on the table. And they went, where'd you get that from? I said, I just sold all those tickets. And they were like, they loved me. And they went, this was the moment where I went, hold on a minute, this is the opportunity. They went to me, they counted out £1,000, and they went, look, that's for you. And I went, I don't want it, I just want a DJ. And they said, what? I said, I want a DJ. And they went, listen, take the money and you're DJing. And I went, sweet. So I took the grand, and then I went and I just stood there like all night waiting. I didn't get on it. I didn't do anything. I waited all night. And the funny thing is as the night progressed, like Fabio, I'm there and I'm like, I'm on next. Yes. And next thing you know, Fabio turned up. Shit, it's Fabio. I got to let Fabio play. And then as Fabio's finishing, I'm thinking, come on, man, this is me. I'm getting my records out and I'm getting ready. Frankie Valentine turns up. Frankie Valentine. So this happened all night. In the end, I got on about 7 a.m, and it was mad. I remember Mickey Finn was in the crowd, and he was going to me. It's like this, and he was trying to tell me the EQ don't sound right, and I went like this to him because I didn't have a bloody clue.
Yeah.
So Mickey Finn, fair play to him, he came and he EQ'd it for me, and I was like, nice one, brother. And and then I DJ'd, and it was amazing. Steve Jackson was on before me, and Steve Jackson, who was Kiss FM, he was like a legend from Kiss FM. He turned around to me and went, what's your DJ name? And I went, Steve. And he went, coming up next is, and because obviously he was Steve Jackson, he didn't want to big up Steve. Do you know what I mean? So I just went, I went on, and it was then that I decided that rave Phantasy meant so much to me that I asked Dave Lambert, who ironically got in contact with me last year. It's so weird. I haven't spoken to him for years, and he actually hit me up and was like, oh, I'm so proud of you, man. Like, he goes like, you've just done amazing, 30 years on and you're still out there and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, thank you, Dave. But he turned around and he said to me, when I said to him, Dave, like, Phantasy means a lot to me. Do you mind if I use the name? And he said, that's fine, as long as you put DJ in front of it. So that's why DJ Phantasy was born. And that's why I kind of always asked for DJ to be put on the front. Although these times sort of everyone, there's not really many people that are DJs now. You have to be a producer first before you become a DJ in modern times. Do you know what I mean?
Just to a DJ, and bear in mind, I'm not comparing apples with apples here. You went on and played that set. You played last at the end. You didn't have techniques, right? I think you might have had sound. You had belt. So, firstly, how did you adjust to that? Because bear in mind, this is vinyl. This isn't CDJs. Yeah. And how did the set go? Looking back at it now.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the first time I touched the proper techniques. That was in Ibiza.
Right.
and with the Ibiza story again is in the book. But what it is with Ibiza, me and my cousins went over to Ibiza in the summer of '88. The music was, yeah, I weren't feeling it. It was quite Balearic. So it wasn't like what we were playing back home in the UK, you know what I mean? And I just walked past this club called Play 2, just along San Antonio. And you walk downstairs to it. And I walked into the club and I said to the guy, I'm a top London DJ. Can I play at your club? And he went, yeah, no worries. And I said, oh, okay. Didn't expect that. And he went, I said, the only problem is I haven't got any music. He went, don't worry about it. And he showed me this wall and it had just a wall of vinyl.
Oh, okay.
He said to me, help yourself. So I went and I picked all of the tracks that I knew I had at home. And then what I did is he went to me, right, I put them to the side. There was maybe about 50 records there. And he went to me, come back at 5 a.m. So I went, sweet. So I basically went to Amnesia or one of them clubs. And then, I came back at 5 a.m. and I turned up. There was no one in there, just me and my cousin. We walked in there and I put the record on the deck and I pressed play and I went, oh my God. And it was at that moment that I knew I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
And it was like weird. Anyway, in the club, there was probably about 20, 30 people or whatever. They're all there dancing away, going, man, this is like 5, 6 in the morning, you know, everyone's like mash up. And yeah, it was like, that was the first time I touched the Techniques decks. And then I basically, when I come home, I asked my dad to lend me £1,000 to buy some, which obviously bloody kicked off about, fucking, and I was like, Dad, I promise I'll pay you back. I still haven't paid him back, by the way.
But he reminds you about that.
Yeah.
Actually, because there is a story to that, isn't there? Because actually, this is obviously the moment where you really want to do it. You've lent £1,000, but I think you mentioned in the book about you having to pay your mum to sort of like,
yeah,
the food's or
yeah.
sorry, that's one word, but to sort of like
Just
get her to tell him first.
Yeah, to bring my dad into line with my ambition. Yeah, so basically, when I left, I went to college to study carpentry, and then what I did is I just remember I was working all week on the buildings, and I was getting like £100 for a whole week's work. And it was like hard work, man. It was like proper labouring and everything. And then I was going out and DJing on a Saturday night and getting £150. And like the contrast was building site for a week for £100 with my uncle and everyone on my back. And then I go to a club, play for an hour and a half, get £150 and everyone's like loving me and going mad and loving the music. And one day I just went, hold on a minute. What's going on? Like I go here and I work 40 hours a week for £100, and then I go here and do an hour and a half for £150, and I get bollocked here and I get love here. I went, fuck that. So I said to my mum, do you want to earn £50? Speak to my dad and just tell him I want a year off to pursue music. And he turned around. He wasn't happy. He was not happy. But I knew I had a year. He gave me the year off. And I had a year to prove myself, and thank the Lord.
Thank God you did that. Talking about your mum and dad as well, you found out very late in the day their sort of musical background. First, why didn't they tell you? And two, what did they do?
So my mum was a singer, which I didn't know, and my dad was a drummer, which I didn't know. And it was my auntie Breeder that I was round one day to us about, I don't know, maybe 92, 93, 94, whatever, when I was fully immersed in the business now. And she turned around and she went, oh, well, it was only right you'd go into music. And I was like, why? And she went, well, your mum and dad were basically into music. And I was like, what? And then she showed me photos of my mum singing, and she showed me photos of my dad like playing the drums. So obviously I went to both of them and I was like, you didn't tell me you was a singer and you didn't tell me you was a drummer. And my dad was like, oh, it was just a bit of fun. And I said, but Dad, like, did you not think when I started saying I want to do music, did you not actually think to yourself that this is what I did? They probably never looked at it as a career. They looked at it as a bit of fun, which is quite funny, because let's go back now. Music is seen as a career, but I got called into the job centre. The geezer said to me, what do you do for a living? I'm a DJ. And he went, yeah, that's not a proper job. You need a proper job. And I went, mate, I earn more money than you. That didn't go down well, by the way. The government or they didn't see music as a career. You know what I mean? And that's why I love the way we are where we are now. Is it's respected as a career.
So this just to move towards a bit more of the Chelsea part of your life, that you were involved with some of the headhunters, and we've seen everyone's seen documentaries and films about what it was like, but what was it in reality like, and how did you get involved in that, and what age?
We got involved quite young. We were kind of like the younger firm for that. So you had West Ham had the under fives. We had the ADF, which is the away day firm, and it was like just like anything from like 30 to 60 kids. That what we would do is we would just be there. Do you know what? It was just fun, man. It was just a laugh. Like, you know, what I loved about it was the sort of camaraderie, and you know, when you're looking up to your elders, like I won't mention no names, but when you're talking to these guys and you know they're serious guys and they're treating you with respect, and you're like 13, 14 years old, and they're not talking to you like a kid, like you go to school or whatever and your teachers are talking to you like there's a dickhead. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got these guys that are serious guys, 18, 20, 24, and they're talking to you like an adult. What for me, I was in it until I was 18. And then what happened is around the 18 age, two of my mates we were just literally walking down the road. We weren't doing anything. We were walking down the road, and the old Bill they just jumped us. And basically two of my mates got nicked and they got jail for just walking along the road. And it was then when I went, hold on a minute, this isn't fun no more. And you know, but another thing as well, there was such a respect for like women and children. Like, so basically if there was a big off, it'd be quite mad. There'd be a big off. I remember in the bull ring in Birmingham, there was this big off one time. We got ambushed, and everything was flying. Fruit and veg stalls were flying and everything. And it was, I'm thinking about it now, it was a bit mad. But there was this woman pushing a child, and you see these guys just like, go on, love, get out of the way, and blocking her and getting them in the shop to out of the way. And I'm like, you know, that we're under attack, and then their mentality is make sure that woman and pram are cool. And you know, like I love that. There was an element of respect. And then, but we went down to QPR Everton, and I was with one of QPR's top boys, and we met Everton's top boy, and he took us out for a meal whilst the match was on.
Mad.
And I was sitting there, and I never forget, he ordered for me, right? And he ordered me fish, chips, and peas. Now I hate peas, or I hated them even more. I'm like them now. Yeah. But he ordered me peas, and I didn't want to tell him I don't want peas. But he fucking ordered the food, man, and we sat there, and it was so funny because obviously I was more with like the QPR guy, but it was so weird talking to this, and the level of respect everyone had for each other. It was weird, like, and I'm sitting there going, this is surreal. There's like QPR v Everton's happening at the ground around the corner. We're on the Goldhawk Road in a chip shop cafe having lunch with Everton's top boy. And the level of respect. And I loved that, because when it was on, but after that, it'd be like shake hands and everyone go about their business. One.
Well done. You've done it. But you must have seen some bad stuff, Steve, because obviously sometimes you've got to respect. But I know from what I did see in some documentaries where there are teams where you've got massive rivalry, where I guess sometimes it goes a bit further on than the respect, and people get really hurt.
It was like a dust up, you know. I know it's a very old way of saying it, but it was just like basically a fist fight. And it was what it is with football. It was more like, you would have times where it would get quite nasty, but it was more about like showing force and going into someone else's area and basically running them in their own area, or taking over their pub and showing the force. You know, there was a lot more. It was quite funny because I was actually in that film, you know, the film with Danny Dyer, Football Factory. Yeah. So I'm in the Football Factory, right?
Are you? Okay.
I actually even though I'm Chelsea, I actually went there and played a Tottenham fan when they attacked the pub.
Right.
So I like, my role in that was to basically get beaten up. So, which, you know, it was quite funny. But if you ever see the DVD, if you watch the extras part, you can see me talking in the extras part. There was loads of like old football heads there, like, and it was quite nice seeing them all again after all these years.
Well, how did you get asked to do it?
It was actually some guy I know who was one of Tottenham's boys. He called me up and said, "Oh, there's a film being made about Chelsea's Headhunters. Do you know about it?" I said, "No." And he went, "Oh, I'm going down there tomorrow. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, fuck that." I went down there, met Nick Love. I met Danny Dyer. That's the first time I met Danny Dyer. What an absolute legend. because the next time I met him, I didn't think he'd remember me, and I was like, "Yo, Danny, I met you," and he went, "Football Factory, you were Spurs, weren't you?" I went, "I'm not Spurs, but I was," and he went, "Yeah, I remember you," and we started having a chat.
Yeah.
And then like every time I've seen him since then, like I was actually like so buzzing that he even bloody remembered me, you know what I mean? But anytime I've ever seen him then, it's like, "All right, Dan, how are you? What's happening?" You know what I mean? So lovely
Mad.
fella.
And do you know what though? Is that you mentioned about the respect? It's the last bit about football and stuff. Chelsea obviously have a lot of rivalries, right? And but there was one thing you did mention actually. Was it when is it West Ham when you all come in, like you were at the front or something, and you were running towards each other, and then
all I see was just they were on the King's Road. There was seas of people. So what we did is we had to show a force. There was only about 70 of us. Anyway, we ran towards West Ham, and as we ran towards West Ham, I turned around. There was only about 10 of us. And like what they did is we run into them, and they just run past us because we stood up to him, and his one guy grabbed me and he went, "Listen, go on, fuck off, like you've just go down that way, like respect for standing," you know what I mean? And I remember walking off down that road thinking, "Fucking hell, I got away with that." Yeah, it was a bit of fun. I mean, obviously it started not becoming fun with things like serious things like the Hazel and things like that. When them things start happening where there's loss of life, that's when you're like,
your friends going to jail. That was probably a light bulb moment.
Like they were telling me that when they were in jail, they were like, all of the, I don't know if it's the screws, were like going, "Oh, what a tough football hooligans," yeah, and they were in there as football hooligans, and but the thing is, I wouldn't mind if they actually were doing something, but we were literally just walking along the road. They were well hard done by. They should never have.
Right.
They should.
Yeah,
and one of them was a first time offence on anything, straight 6 months, and that was when I just went. And I tell you what,
trying to make an example. Do you think of?
Yeah, the police were on a major crackdown at that time. They were on a major crackdown, and it actually, you know what? There was a woman that actually saved me that day because I went into this pub, and the old Bill come and he grabbed me, and this woman behind the bar went, "He's been here for hours, love." And then the police officer let go of me. I went, "All right," and I turned around to her and I went, "Thank you so much." I wasn't even old enough to be in the pub. I was about 17. You know what I mean? And
it's that face. Steve's that face. See, it's that, I don't know.
Listen, my guardian angel was looking out for me or something. But yeah, it was. You know what? It was a great part of growing up to be involved in something. You know what I mean? But
I think it sounds like you've sort of like tried lots of different things when you were younger, which actually I think's kind of helped you sort of going forward.
Got out of my system.
Got out of your system early. So let's get into the DJing bit now, which is obviously where most of our listeners will know you then. So 1989, 30th of September was a magical moment. How quickly did your career really go from there?
I only decided I wanted to be a DJ when I was about 18. When I started, when I found that you can actually buy this music, and I'm like, oh my God, you can actually buy this. I didn't even realize that it would be available to buy. And that was when I started collecting records. I mean, before that, I would collect things like Madness, Baggy Trousers, The Specials, and things like that. You know what I mean? But they were more like 7-inch electro. Electro was my favorite all-time music from way back in the day.
How many years did you say, you know what, I'm good at this?
Well, I always thought I was good at it. There is an art to DJing. You've got to take people on a journey, so you take them through the highs and the lows. But obviously, as times changed, like the lows now are the breakdowns, and then bam, 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 it's back in. You know what I mean? Because the music's changed now. And also, don't forget, many years ago, you'd have records that were 6, 7, 8 minutes long. Now, 3 minutes is no one wants to listen to a song more than like a minute and a half. They skip to the next one. But I've always believed in what I do, but and I've never ever looked back, never ever looked and gone, oh, I've made it. Afterwards, I remember after we'd done Hippodrome, the track Hippodrome, it was maybe 3 or 4 years later, I turned around and went, fucking hell, that was actually a moment. Because remember, everything we do in life is a moment. Yeah. This is a moment right now. Yeah. Like when I played Rampage at the weekend, like amazing show, one of the best shows in the world. That was a moment. Tomorrowland, played there, absolute Tomorrowland, mate, if you ever want to go to a rave, go to Tomorrowland. It is so
Rampage is one I want to go to as well. I've seen the
you have
videos
to.
of you guys DJing there, and them saying, "Oh my god, it looks like there's
Yeah, it's
20,
amazing.
30,000 people.
They
It's
put
amazing."
on so much. They do so much for they do so much production, and it's just an amazing event to be on. Do you know what I mean? And to perform at, and even to go to. You know what I mean? Just I know so many people that after that first year we'd done it, the next year they all went there.
Yeah,
They were like, it's the time of our lives. It's just like they put on a full on show. They don't no cutbacks or anything. But anyway. I've never actually looked and gone, oh yeah, this is, you know, I've made it or anything, because I always believe when you get to a level, right, what's next? What's the next thing? And you're always looking to go higher. But I always remember Fabio said to me once, and this is like, Fabio was like, you know, one of the kings out there. And I remember it was at Astoria in 1990, and I was chatting to him, and he turned around and he went to me, I can see you're going to do really well. And I was like, oh, thanks, bro. And I thought he was just being nice and that. And he went, yeah, he goes, you're going to do really well. I can see it. And then about a year later, I was coming on after him at a massive festival in Cambridge. And he turned around to me and he went, what did I tell you? And I went,
nice.
I that's all he said is, what did I tell you? And I just like shook his hand, gave him a hug and just said, thank you, bro. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think, you know, remember, again, they're all just moments in time, and, you know, you've just got to, like,
But you've
embrace.
evolved, though. I came into jungle. By the way, I'm wearing this T-shirt here, so your name's on it somewhere. But obviously, music has evolved, and like you said, it's moments and stuff. But how have you evolved, though, and kept at the best, you know, being the top of your game?
I think it's very important to be flexible. Don't get stuck in your ways, you know. Like, so again, it's quite funny what you said earlier is like, I've done everything early. So in my early career, I was in this mindset of we as DJs must play the music of the future. So at the time when rave was massive and everyone was playing the big piano anthems, I was like going, well, look, Rat Pack are doing that, and Slipmat's doing that, and Disburn's doing that. I want to do something different. And what I was doing is I was playing like more breakbeat orientated stuff. And I always remember I was in this rave in Bristol, and this raver come up to me and went, you play the wickedest jungle techno ever. And I remember thinking, wow, I didn't really think I was playing jungle techno. I was just playing like breaks and that, but they coined it. And anyway, so I was very much in that frame of mind. And then as time's gone on, about 96, and I was with my mate, he was a professional footballer, Bruce Dyer. Like, so this guy is playing at Old Trafford, Stamford Bridge, Highbury, all these stadiums, right? And I was with him, and he turned around and said something to me which just opened my eyes so much. And he went to me, it was me, him, and Hype, and Sean Newton, who played for Charlton. We were all together in the car, and I turned around to Hype and I was like, you're Hype, why are you playing this? You're Hype, you need to be educating people. And then Hype was like, no, my job is to entertain people. I weren't hearing Hype. Hype was actually annoying me because of what he was saying. And then my mate Bruce Dyer turned around and went, yo, Phantos, I love you, you know that, you're my brother. He goes, and you're a sick DJ, but when I go out, I want to hear Chopper, I want to hear like 31 Seconds. I want to hear Wolf and all them commercial songs. And is at that moment, everything changed in my thought process, because this is a professional footballer who, like, I would love to be doing what he does, and he'd love to be doing what I do, which is quite ironic. I thought it was a bit mad. Like, why would you? I'd rather be a footballer. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, he was like, to control people with music is an amazing thing. And I was like, wow, I didn't really look at it like that, but it is an amazing thing to be able to control people's emotion with music, man, and how they're feeling, and give them a good time. You know, it's hard enough. Life is hard enough. Like, they come to a rave to be entertained, not to be educated. But I was trying to educate people. But at that moment, I changed everything. And when I changed everything, thank God that conversation happened, because everything just took a turn and went on an upwards curve from there. And, you know, what it is I just kept evolving with the music, and also as well, I think it's very, very important to surround yourself with basically the new generation of people coming through, because we have this kind of tendency to lock, you know, if people, if they're at the top, they lock it off for themselves. UK garage, one of the best musics to ever come out of the UK. Absolutely. Even if you didn't play it, you liked it. It was just,
Yeah.
you know, and what happened was the top guys like were just in so much control. It was very hard for new people to come through. I mean, there was a point when dubstep was like just ridiculously massive. One thing about drum and bass and jungle is it keeps evolving with these new people coming through, and you're now getting artists that, you know, there's this one artist that I was talking to her and I was like, you play quite jungly. And she's like, yeah, I grew up listening to jungle. My mum and dad are big jungle fans. So she plays modern drum and bass, but more jungle vibes to it that, and I was like, I didn't even think about that. Of course, your mum and dad would be listening to tape packs and going out raving the Sanctuary and, you know, and the Island Ilford and whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? And
my point about, you mentioned about Bruce Dyer. I'm best friends with a garage MC. Unfortunately, he's passed away. Knew Bruce Dyer quite well, Richard Rufus, and they both got into a little bit of garage, played a bit of garage and stuff. And I met Bruce Dyer because obviously a Palace fan as well. He played for us for a few years, but
because I was the one that was getting him on the gigs.
Oh, okay, wicked. All right, makes sense.
I was linking him with the garage promoters because all of the garage guys all come from jungle, so I knew them all anyway.
Yeah,
well, most of them.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I'm the one that got him them little gigs, and then obviously like Martin Lyon, I was booking him for what's that place in Vauxhall, the Coliseum,
yeah,
and things like that. So yeah, like listen, man, that was.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't
bad.
Yeah,
it was all right. Yeah, I'll tell you what, he loved it. He loved it. Yeah.
So with garage then as well, like, so I know, sorry, we're going off track a little bit here. You mentioned earlier, it was massive, and there was a point, 1999. Like I say, I was very heavily involved because I was the driver for my mate who's MCing. But yeah, it was mad, and every footballer was there, you know, because it wasn't, drum and bass was went for a bit of a bad time as well.
Yeah,
didn't it?
yeah.
And then,
drum and bass was not good in them eras.
Yeah, so for garage sort of filled that gap a bit, but thank God it came back. But just on the drum and bass side of stuff, because I first remember you actually, my first set I ever went to was at United Dance. It was in Stevenage. In that, do you remember? It's like leisure centre, and that was the first time I ever heard you. You obviously looked a bit different then. You had obviously like sort of longer hair and stuff. Yeah. Would you say in your time in these 30 years, has DJs had a competitive element? You know, you've got these awards that have come in over the last 10, 15 years and stuff. I asked Shot at this, by the way. Is there like a element of competition when it comes to those awards?
Nah, no one gives a shit.
No,
the awards are bullshit, man.
Really?
I'll just tell you that. It's all a load of bollocks. You know, we've won some awards and yeah, cool. But the thing is it's just a popularity contest, and whoever's popular. And the thing is how can you turn around and say someone is the best at something? Like, the bottom line is everybody brings something different to the table. You know, if everybody was the same, then it would be boring. It's good that you've got DJ Markey that can scratch and turn the turntable upside down and all this shit. No one else can do that, so he's the best. Oh, but then you know, this man does like 3, you know, double, triple drops and that. Cool. So what? I play 4 records at once. So what? It doesn't matter. That, you know, it's like the old birthday party, like the birthday bashes. It's just a way to tag an event and to make it different than the next event. So yeah, I just think the awards are a load of bollocks, mate. You know what it is? A lot of people feel the same. They just probably won't say it. Can I just say one thing? Can I say one thing, right? The one single most important thing above all else, above all DJs, above all MCs, all producers, is the ravers. The people that go out and support the music, the people that stream it online, the people that buy it, the people that buy your T-shirts, your hats, the people that pay good hard-earned money to come and see you play. Without them doing that, who are we making music for ourselves? Yeah. Really, the awards should be for them. You know, this person spent 200 quid on merchandise for 10 artists. They should get an award over the year. Do you know what I mean? We should be awarding them people there that are out there, and more importantly, you know, the people that don't just listen to it, that actually share it and are proud to be part of the community. They're the people that matter most, man.
That's a good point. And just on that, with regards to social media, now you've mentioned this a few times in some of the podcasts I've researched on how important that is. How's social media changed your career, and how's it helped?
Social media is not real. People need to understand that it's not real. It's a highlight of that moment. I look at, like, I obviously will watch what I post and I read the comments and I engage with people, because again, if somebody's taking 5 seconds to go love this, or nice one, or put an emoji, at least like it and sometimes reply to them and everything, because at the end of the day, like, they're no different to me. They're human like me, and we both, like, the reason we're in communication with each other is because of our love of this music. Don't believe everything that you see online. Don't get me wrong. Look, we're in a time now where artists won't even promote their own songs on release day or let people know the song's coming out. We're in a time now where it's not cool to promote the event you're playing at. Yeah, this is where we're at now.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Even myself, like, when someone says, "Carl, can you push the event?" I'll do a stories or a tweet. I won't put it on my timeline, because what it is what's the point of putting it on the timeline? And, like, you look at the stats, 4,000 people have seen it, but, like, 50 people have liked it. And then you put a video up of you playing somewhere and you get 5,000 or not 500 likes and 20,000 plays. At the end of the day, we're in the stats society at the moment. But also as well, this is something, we've got a podcast coming out today, ironically,
cool.
an SASAS podcast. This time now where people they're getting booked off of the fact that they've got like 2 million streams or something like that of a song, but that doesn't mean that they're ready to perform in front of an audience. And the problem is, if that person goes out and for 55 minutes plays whatever, and then on the last song they play their song, the people are paying to go and see that person for that song. Yeah. So what it is like, the other 55 minutes they're like just there, like, on their phone, like, doing whatever. And it kind of makes things a little bit like,
I'm so glad you're saying this, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Steve, but I'm so glad you just said all the stuff you've just said. I know we can get deep at this, but that is my frustration. Like, I'm not the best DJ in the world, but I've heard DJs. I've actually done back to back with DJs on radio shows. I'm like, come on, I'm not going to mention any names, but they've got such a following, and I'm 45 years old. I can't go back. I can't go in Love Island and try and get rid of viewers. Ain't gonna happen, right? So thank you so much for saying that, by the way, because it's just nice to hear that from your side of stuff, where you've earned your stripe, the badges, because of you're good. You've been there a long time. Where somebody could be on Love Island, they don't play on their set because
it's funny. Listen to this, yeah. This is a funny story. So Skibadee, my brother, God rest his soul, man. I love that guy. I remember he met this guy who was on TV. He was doing a reality show, and he was so gassed about meeting this guy. And I was like, bro, I was like, look, I know who he is, and it's lovely to meet him. He's a lovely guy. You know what I mean? He's like, really nice fella. And I said, bro, like, just because he's on the telly now, you're more famous than him. And Skibber was like, no, man, but he's on the telly. I was like, bruv, you've had like 2-3 generations of people's mums and dads that know who Skibadee is. There's people that don't even like jungle drum and bass that know who Skibadee is. They've heard of you. Do you know what I mean? And he was so humble. He didn't get that. He didn't understand that. But the thing is he was actually so happy to meet this guy, and also as well, I remember when we did the Red Bull Culture Clash, we did
by the way, unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
That was mad. We did Red Bull Culture Clash, and then what happened was Lethal Bizzle was there, and so what happened is Lethal Bizzle was like gassed to see Skibber and Shabba, and like Skibber was like gassed to see Lethal Bizzle. And I was like, bro, like, Lethal Bizzle said it. I filmed it. Lethal Bizzle went, if it wasn't for these two, I would have been doing what I'm doing now.
You see a lot of people say that. And actually, I've got one little story. I did this on when I went to Harry Schotter podcast. I got one opportunity through COVID because of COVID. And I got Skibadee, who's my hero. I loved him to bits. So Steve Hyperdee, Skibadee, they're just my heroes of growing up. So I got an opportunity for him to come on to a radio show I was doing online, and it was a half an hour interview and an hour set with him.
Yeah.
Right. So did obviously very short. Obviously talked to him, asked some questions. Firstly, he made me feel like I was the best at interviewing because he was so engaged. And by the way, it's I haven't improved since then. But
he made everyone just feel special.
yeah, and even when it came to the DJing, Andy C's one of my favorite DJs. He made me feel like Andy C. Right, got a rewind after the third tune. I was like, oh my god, Skibadee's got a rewind. Those two things, like for me, it's not about money. That's just like
They'll live
me forever. But he
There were
made me
moments.
feel like I was unbelievable at those two things. And
So the
what
thing
a
is,
guy!
what I'm saying is now what you should do if you haven't already done it is highlight that's a highlight for social media. So what you do is you put that clip up of you playing that song, reloading it, Skibadee gassed. What it is, that's social media. So what it is like, you know, you'd put that 15-20 seconds or whatever up, and it's a moment. And this is what I keep talking about. We have moments in time, do you know what I mean? And you know, it's like it's, you know, it's funny because the other day I was talking to an artist, and they said to me, you don't do drugs, do you? I was like, nah, man. I said like that when I was younger, I would have dabbled, but not now, you know what I mean? And they said, like, how do you stay so energetic, like, you know, still after all these years? And I was like, mate, that is my drug. Like, just playing at that rave, seeing all those people going mad, that was like going straight in the veins, mate, you know what I mean? And you can't, you know, you just, again, it was just a moment. And then the problem is when you have such a high, is your natural is to have a low after it. And what it is, it's about that's where the mental health angle comes in, and you've got to learn to balance that. And then what, you know, I'm lucky that I have, like, you know, a good strong home life, and and you know, I keep very much separate. My business and my home, they're separate. So when I go home, that's it, it's home. And then when I go to work, it's like work. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, and again, I'm conscious of time, by the way, Steve, and I'll try and keep the last few questions short. But I think they always say, don't they, that good wife, good life, you know, and obviously have a good family. Just want to talk about the SASAS stuff, because obviously when I met Skibadee, I asked the question about how did it all start, and then he laughed and went, "Oh God, me and Steve always argue about this. Who come up with the idea?" So again, you can talk about it, but obviously it's been unbelievable how that all started and how it's evolved. But I do want to mention why we're doing this about RIP to Stormin and Skibadee. Ask us a show. What has it been like? Firstly, you know, how big it's got, and how's things been since all these unfortunate things have happened in the last few years?
Yeah, to lose both of them has just been like, you know, it's after Stormin, it was about a year afterwards that I think I was in such shock. I don't think I like grieved for him properly. Like, and it was like, you know, I don't want to talk because I don't want to get upset, you know what I mean? Because like, it's fucking so sad, man. And like, you know, nobody will know this, but like, I used to talk to Sean all the time. Like, he probably wouldn't even tell anyone, and we'd be on the phone, and I'd be checking in. I'd be popping to his house, checking in on him. And that guy was such a fighter, man. Honestly, if everybody in the world had half or even a quarter of the fight that guy had in him, like, man, we'd all be super successful. It was an actual inspiration.
Your documentary, Steve, just I would like to mention that you did during that time, and you obviously, there was part of that where he came on stage and he was struggling. I thought that was really good, by the way. So people listening to go and watch that documentary you guys did, because there was an element that you're talking about now where he, you know, he was really suffering, but he was still performing. God knows how.
Yeah, no, seriously, he was like, you know, he was just amazing, you know what I mean? And you know, God rest his soul, man. And then also as well, then, you know, Skibadee, you know, that was just, yeah. I mean, I don't think I spoke to anyone outside of my personal family, for obviously I spoke to Harry and Shabba, but I didn't, and our management team, but outside of them I didn't speak to anyone for like 2-3 weeks. I think Nicky Black Market was the first person I spoke to. He called me about 8 a.m, a Wednesday morning. I remember I couldn't sleep. I was like, it was so bad. And I just remember looking at the phone And I thought, do you know what? Let me answer it. Anyway, I answered it, and I was having. He's like, "You're right." I said, "Not really, man." I said, "Fucking, I can't get over it." Anyway, we're having a chat, and I told him, I'm getting I was getting paranoid because I was getting pains in my chest and pains in my side, and I couldn't. And it was just, I obviously contacted the doctor because I started getting worried now. What the hell's going on? And he turned around to me and went, "That's panic attacks." And I went, "No, it ain't. I don't suffer from panic attacks." You know, I dismissed it. And he was like, "No, I had the same thing when Stevie died." And I went, Nick, do you seriously think it's panic attacks?" And he went, "Everything you've told me is pure panic attacks." And I went, fuck. Anyway, I basically, eventually when I got, because you know the doctors, you have to wait bloody forever.
I know, God, don't. That's another conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, I eventually got in to see the doctor. Basically, obviously had all these tests done and that, and I told her what was going on, and she turned around and went, "That's panic attacks." And I went, "Oh, my mate said that." And she went, "They're this." And I said, "But I don't suffer from panic attacks." She went, "You do. You've had a really traumatic experience." You know what I mean? I'm getting a bit upset now, so I don't really want to talk about it too much. But you know, it
was a shock to everyone, Steve. To be honest, even someone like me, I did that. I met him for an hour and a half, and I got upset about it. So you've known this guy 30 years. So as I said to Harry Shotter as well, he got emotional about it. That it just shows you the impact that he had on people. And even like my son who was with me, like he got upset. So it just shows you that because he wasn't just an MC, he was a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? Gave so much time, and that's why I was upset.
He was my friend. He was my friend as well. And
yeah, exactly.
I want to just say one thing that we're trying to do, and this is part of, like, you know, I don't know if you see during the lockdown, Skibadee was like massively supporting the youngers. Like he had like
I was on his shows.
Like Kinetics. I never knew Kinetics. Now I work with Kinetics. Like Crossy. I didn't know who Crossy was. Now I work with Crossy, Japper, Gray, all these people that are out there doing their thing now. Skibber was on them from he'd be going to me, "Bro, you need to check this artist out." Rah, 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 rah. And he was the champion of trying to bring the youth through. And then so what I did when we knew we were coming out of lockdown, we all kind of started talking about what can we do now for the next stage of SASAS. What are we going to do? And one of the things we discussed was creating a past, present, future. And the reason we do the past, present, future is I'm very, very much, and I always have been, like, even though I'm forward ever, backward never. So I'm always looking forward, but you can never ignore the foundation of our scene, the people that worked and basically got paid shit money back in the day, 50 quid to go and, like, you know, basically fucking work their bollocks off in a club for an hour. But it wasn't about the money. It was about just, you know, like, oh my God, you know, I'm playing to these crowds and everything. And then what it is like, we believe we're the present, we're right now where we are now. And then we've got to look to the future. So what it is like, we created this thing called Past, Present, Future. And the idea was to have people like UK Apache, Top Cat, Spider, Navi, just there's a whole rag of twins, there's a whole list of people from the past that what we would do is bring out on stage with us, and then look for the future, your Wisers, you know, Inner, Endo, Westman, and there's loads of others like Man Like Red, or we haven't even spoken to him, Slay. There's all these people that are like doing amazing stuff, even like Gardner. I mean, Skibber was talking about this guy called Gardner. You've got to check Gardner. And like Gardner's, like, I believe he had like record of the week on Radio 1 the other day. And wow. Skibber told me about him. I was like, who's Gardner? I didn't even know who he was, but I obviously got to find out for a Skibs. So obviously the plan was to do this past, present, future. And then obviously with what happened with Skibs, like I remember the first show we had planned was Love Saves the Day in Bristol. So the idea was to bring like someone like Top Cat out, who we did, and Gardner, because Gardner's Bristol based, and Top Cat's obviously massive in Bristol as well with what he does. So anyway, Gardner, he agreed to do it. We was buzzing, and then the set times, we found out we were on the stage at the same time in different stages, and because he was the only host on that stage, he couldn't come and join us. So we ended up getting Wiser, and she is like, she's so sick, man. Yeah. She's actually sick. Anyway, so what's happened is, what we want to do is, you know, to make sure that we carry on like the legacy that Stormin and Skibadee left behind for the MC culture, for the microphone champions of the world, you know what I mean? And give them a platform to perform, whether they're from the past, like Top Cat, UK Apache, or whether they're from the future that you don't even probably know of them yet.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is use our platform to pull this together.
That's brilliant.
So, you know, there is another thing as well. I had someone, a DJ say to me the other day, he listened to our set at Westfest, and he turned around and said to me, sorry, it was in German. It was Westfest. And then, and he said to me, you play a lot of music with Skibber's voice in it. And I said, well, who else is going to play it? I said, like, someone's got to keep his name out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he went, do you know what? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I said, I'll send you the tunes as well if you want to play them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they won't get released. They're just for the sets. Do you know what I mean? Well, some of them have been.
I guess you've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no. Some of it's been released, but what I've done is I've re-edited it to bring it up to date. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, and also Stormin, you know, what I always remember Stormin saying to me, I just don't want anyone to forget me. And I made him a promise I'd do everything I could to make sure no one forgot him. And, you know, and that's all we can do. You know, every time we go out is like basically make sure we represent them. Even in solo fantasy sets, I want to represent them because, you know, like I just want to do that, man. That's just.
By the way, you guys have done that with all the videos and the social media stuff I've seen. Also the merchandise, and it's great that you're continuing that because they're both massive parts of why we are where we are. You produce a lot of stuff now, and you've evolved your music. Is there any sort of favourites you want to mention? It's probably saying who your favourite child is, but is there any songs that you thought, you know what, they're my favourite? One or two songs?
Not really, because you know, like I think every song has its merit in some sort of way. So, for example, we've just launched a Kickstarter the other day, and like the project's gone so well. Kickstarter have actually featured it on their front music page. They emailed me yesterday, going or the day before, maybe going. We love your project so much, we're going to feature it. But I'd already hit my goal with it. So thank you to everyone out there supporting. Big love. But this is records that I made 30 years ago. Wow. And we're repressing them on vinyl, and the support has been mental, like absolutely mental. It's like it's such an amazing thing to think that tracks that were produced 30 years ago when we didn't have a bloody clue what we were doing. We were just all about vibes. It's the vibes. This is the vibes. Now we're about the vibes, but everything's like, oh shit, that's out. That hi-hat's a bit, and the kick's a bit like, you know, or kick's a bit boomy, and you know, we're all too precise now. And that was one of the amazing things about back then is if you listen to some of the songs, they weren't even in time. Do you know what I mean? Like mixing was like, you needed to know how to mix back then. Now it's just all synchronized. So we've got that liquid wax project. It's called it's a liquid wax quattro, and we put it up for like 28 days or something. We've already hit the target. We've smashed the target. We've nearly doubled it already. Wow. So that's amazing. So that's available. And then also there's something, this is a little exclusive for you, where I've been so busy, I've never really actually celebrated like my time in the music, like the longevity I've had in the music. So what I want to do is, I've had this idea for a few years where I want to do like a long set, like a 4 or 5 hour set, where I start off in 88, 89, and I work up to 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, and then sort of give every section a little half an hour, and then just move through the generations. And what I want to do is, I don't want to say too much, but that's the plan. And I've got some additions to add to that as well to make it.
That'd be brilliant. I'll be all over that. Obviously, one of the big things we've been talking about throughout this whole podcast is the 3 generations deep, which I'll show you as well. Thank you for that. And basically you can buy these. So actually let me move that around. So just really quickly on that, obviously we've touched a bit on it throughout, and obviously everyone, I don't read books, by the way, but when I read that, I was so engaged. So well done. However you've put that together. You've got with Dave Jenkins helping you. For people that just really quickly, obviously you started to write this in when you were touring in Australia.
Yeah.
How long did it take from start to finish to write the book?
About 2 years.
Wow.
But what it is Dave Jenkins, I got to like big him up so much. So he basically said to me, look, just write your thoughts down. He goes, don't worry about spelling mistakes. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about anything. Just write everything down. He goes, and I will put it together and make it flow. So what it is the funny thing about memories is that I could be talking about, say, when me and Skibadee were in Malia, and that would remind me of something else about a deal that I tried to get in with Sony Records. So what it is like, how memories lead to other memories. So there'd be no direct timeline. Then I'd have to go back to Dave and be like, oh no, sorry man, that bit I talked about, it's not in 98, it was actually bloody 91. And so what we'd have to do is just piece it together. But the way, let's put it this way, it was quite weird. I mean, I read the book because I had to spell check it and fact check it. And the maddest thing is at the end, like he wrote the end bit. I told him, I told him what I wanted to say and everything, and he wrote it, and I actually had water in my eyes at the end.
I'm not surprised.
It was, and I'll tell you what, I found writing it very therapeutic. It was weird getting some things out that I was like, shit.
How do you remember everything? Because I can't remember like certain things, but you were very detailed. Like you write like a diary, or was it just there in there?
Yeah, it's just stored in there. But remember, it's funny because like the one thing about like people, it's like me and you could go and watch a football match and sit next to each other and see the game completely different.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So there was like a story in here where my cousin and my mate Andy, they reminded me of something which I forgot, and because they read the book, they were like, and it was about that fantasy rave, and they went, when I went to the rave, I never had my records. And what they did was I asked them, could they go back home to get my tunes? So they all got in the car off their nut and drove home. They got pulled over by the old bill and everything. But I don't ever remember them telling me that. So in my head, I went to the fantasy rave. I handed the money. I went, can I play? They said, yeah. And I went and stood behind the decks with my crate. Because don't forget, back in them days, we had a crate, a milk crate. Yeah, that's how we carried our records, in a milk crate. And I said, so in my head, I was there all night. And they went, no, you didn't have your records on you. Like, we had to go back to Fulham to get them. And I was like, what? And I was like, no. And then my cousin Eamon was like, yeah, it's true. Like, we went off, and it was like Andy, Eamon, Barry Smith and someone else. They all drove off back from Reigate to Fulham to get my music and come back to Reigate to give me my records. And look at that. I left it out. I didn't even know. But what my point for even saying it is, we remember things how we remember them. But what it is it's like, that's why I think I might have even said all of the accounts in this book are how I remember them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's funny because Gemini, like, he turned around and said to me, when he read the book, he said, the first part of the book, I knew everything you were talking about. And I was like, yeah, I remember that. He goes, and then it got to a point where I'm like, it's like I didn't know you. He goes, you just went off and done all this stuff. And he goes, and he was like, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know this. And anyway, and then I've had someone else who was more in the later part of my life actually say, I remember everything from that point onwards, but I don't remember, I know nothing about your history beforehand. So the good thing about it is everybody took something different out of the book. Do you know what I mean? And what I made sure to do is I wanted to keep it positive. Even though I had some tough times, I didn't want to be sitting there pointing the finger at this person and that person, because at the end of the day, it is what happens. It's nobody's fault. You know what I mean? You just got to kind of get on with it. And
would you say the book is your proudest moment, or have you got any other moment that you say I'm most proud of?
I think my kids. That'd be the proudest moment, because
but outside of family wise, what would you say is the proudest moment in your career?
Do you know what? I can't really put it down. You can't really pick one thing over the other, because like every moment, good or bad, has helped me be who I am today. Do you understand what I mean? And you can't pinpoint anything. What it is, one thing about me is if I put my head that I want to do something, I just go and do it. I don't sort of, if somebody tells me, you can't do it, I just go, all right, cool, I'm just going to do it anyway. Yeah. And if it don't work, it don't work. Cool. But if it works, it works. I don't want to ever look back and go, I wish I did that. I wish I did that. No, if I want to do it, I'll go and do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's probably going back to entrepreneur and your bit you mentioned about being a DJ. It's your business, right? And you've obviously been a true professional. How do you want to be remembered? Bit deep question. Apologies, but
I like a good laugh. I love helping people. I always remember when I was at school. This is going back from school, like because I hung around with all the cool kids. I always remember this guy, Carl, right? He was bullying this kid, like this junior, and he had him up against the wall. And I come in and I went, Carl, put him down, man. And I know Carl really wanted to punch me in the face, but he couldn't because he knew that I knew everybody at the school and he would have been outcasted. And anyway, and what it is I don't like bullies. I can't stand that kind of mentality, like, because someone's bigger than you, they can do that. I hate that. And so I always from back in the early days of school, I was like, I was always quite, I don't know if it's say you want to sort of help the underdog sort of thing, but but the thing is like, and then even now, like when I see all these like young artists that are coming through and I can see something they've got saying, I'll try and do something to help them, because I believe that I believe that that's what we should do. We've got all this wealth of experience. It's only right that we use it in the best way possible to help the future generation of our music thrive. And also, if they thrive, it's good for the scene. It's good for them. All of us basically benefit. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's a great answer, by the way. And on that note, that is the end of the podcast. By the way, thank you for being so authentic. I could ask you loads more questions, but I want people to go and buy your book. So everybody, if you haven't already bought it, it's called 3 Generations Deep. Honestly, it's an amazing book to read. If you've been involved in the last 30 years of Phantasy's life, it's definitely good insight into it. I can relate to a lot of stuff to it. I guess I'm looking forward to your next book.
Well, I won't be doing a next book, but I have. I've got the microphone and everything there. My plan was during lockdown, which I never did it. I ended up just sitting in the studio trying to learn new techniques of doing stuff. But the thing is I want to do an audio book. I've had so many people ask me about an audio book. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm thinking of starting my own podcast, like as a fantasy one. And what I might do is narrate chapters from the book in it.
Do you know what? That is so mad. Steve, can I just say something quickly while you're saying that? I wanted to hear I think Tyson Fury did it, and I really wanted to hear your voice in the book, but I didn't want to say that. But when you said that, because I find it better listening to people, and I actually use an app to convert the text of the book into someone talking, but it was like a American voice or something. And I was going to say that to you, actually. That would be amazing to hear you, because you're very quite, you come across, you're quite inspiring. You've got a good way of engaging, and the way you talk very, very well, by the way. And it would be nice to hear you talk in maybe your personality in that book. So I know that takes a lot of time, but that would be amazing. So anyway, that's my...
Yeah, no, the thing is it's funny, because I actually had people say to me that when they were reading when I was sort of going, yeah, bruv, they said I could actually hear your voice. It was so weird. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so I definitely it's something I want to do.
We could talk about this. Buy that book. It's amazing. Thank you so much, by the way. I don't know if you want to add anything before we go, but I appreciate your time with this.
No, listen, thank you so much. I see the pod you done with Harry Shotter. I loved it. I thought it was great. So when you hit me up, I just thought, yeah, let's do this. Do you know what I mean? But so thank you so much. Everybody subscribe to his podcast, because he's got some big interviews, and you can use that for a little outtake.
Episodes will be available every Saturday. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe and follow to receive notifications of each of my new shows. Also, make sure you like, share and comment. Thank you for listening.